don't know.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the flare virus featured in the Maze Runner series based on the popular novels created by James Dashner. The flare virus, also known as pathogen VC321X-B47, was essentially a man-made disease created by the PFC as a means of population control in direct response to a shortage in food and resources caused by cataclysmic solar storms. Once within the bloodstream of its host, the virus would slowly eat away at the brain, eventually turning its victims into crazed and bloodthirsty beings referred to in the series by the survivors as cranks. In order for us to understand the flare virus, I think it's important for us to explore the circumstances that led to its creation. As mentioned just before, in the series it's explained that in the year 2136, the Earth was ravaged by abnormal solar flares, which were extremely powerful coronal mass ejections released from the Sun that turned the area between the two tropics of Cancer and Capricorn into the wastelands known as the Scorch. The cataclysmic event, which occurred roughly 15 years before the Maze Runner trials were put into place, utterly devastated human civilization by bringing about irrevocable changes to the Earth's climate and the environment. Approximately 4.5 billion people died within the first 15 minutes of the solar storms, and billions more would die in the subsequent firestorms, extreme heat, and tsunamis that ravaged the planet in the weeks to come. To make matters worse, the Earth's magnetic fields were greatly disrupted by the event, allowing for increased radiation to reach the surface, making more places inhospitable to life, including most of Central America, South America, Africa, Asia, and Australia, which were decimated. Those that were not directly hit by the solar storms eventually suffered immense economic strain due to the subsequent environmental and natural disasters caused by the solar storms. Now, the remnants of many former governments joined to form the Post-Flares Coalition, known as the PFC, which was an international organization whose goal it was to find solutions to the various problems in the world caused by the sun flares. Shortly after its formation, the PFC launched a survey to determine the state of the world following the sun flares. 6 months after this, the survey was completed, and during a special resource conference, it was grimly revealed that there was insufficient food, drinkable water, and living space to effectively serve the remaining 1.4 billion surviving people, with there being only enough sustainable resources left for about 70% of the remaining population. In the movie tie-in book, The Scorched Trials official graphic novel Prelude, which is canon to the movies but contradicts the original series in many respects, Dr. Mary Cooper of the PFC Scientific Initiative proposed a rationing program of resources to feed everyone. Ava Page, a former city council member of Blackfoot, Idaho, however, disagreed, believing that this would only lead to civil unrest and ultimately war that would threaten to fracture the PFC, and she instead proposed that the remaining 30% had to be eliminated in some manner. Page made note that prior to the sun flares, Dr. Cooper had been studying a gene that randomly occurred in about 30% of the population, and she believed that it was necessary to find a way to target this gene and eliminate all those that possessed it. While initially wanting no part in the effective genocide of a third of the remaining human population, Dr. Cooper was informed that the PFC would move forward with the plan whether or not she was involved, leading to her staying with the misguided belief that if she did, the PFC would do the population reduction right so that innocent lives were not needlessly killed. And thus, Dr. Cooper ultimately acquiesced, revealing a virus would be needed. Approximately 2 years later, as detailed in the book The Kill Order, the PFC released a deadly virus via airborne deployment into South Carolina as a means of population control. Because the virus was released shortly following the sun flares, people began calling it the flare virus, and within months, the flare, being airborne, quickly spread and became a global pandemic with occurrences in most of the remaining major population centers within a year. I think it's also important to note that most people actually had no idea that this was a government initiative, and they all thought that this was another unforgiving act of nature. And though the virus was originally created to quickly and painlessly kill its victims, it instead changed the way that the individual thought and reacted for the worse, gradually turning people into cranks.
Hello, Mary. I hope we'd meet again. I'm sorry it had to be under these circumstances.
I'm sorry about a lot of things too.
Once turned into a crank, infected individuals were extremely violent and had a murderous desire to kill others, sometimes even clawing themselves when in isolation. Due to the horrendous mistake the PFC had made, an organization called Wicked was then founded in the ashes of the New World, with the hope that a cure could be created, as mentioned in the Maze Runner files. Just 1% of the population, mostly people under the age of 20, were found to be immune to the flare virus, leading Wicked to use them as a means of finding a cure by looking at how their brains reacted to certain situations, hence their placement into the maze-like constructs.
Thomas. Wicked is good.
Much like traditional zombies, the infection was transmitted through bites and scratches. But unlike zombies, which were in essence undead beings, the infected cranks were still human, and their humanity was buried beneath the infection, which meant that if and when a cure was to be created, they still had the potential to come back. Throughout the series, it's explained that there were various stages of the flare virus. At the onset of infection, a host will often feel off and would begin exhibiting symptoms such as sudden mood swings, paranoia, poor balance, headaches that get worse as time goes on, irrational anger, and aggression. These symptoms would gradually worsen, stripping the victims of their humanity, turning them into demented, cannibalistic, zombie-like lunatics. When they've gotten to a point where their sanity is completely lost, they're referred to as being past the stage known as the Gone, and those that were past the Gone often had horrifying injuries, presumably gained through fights with other cranks, as well as those caused by self-mutilation. Through the process of observation, Wicked was able to discover that an extremely active brain, often triggered by stress, would quicken the rate at which the virus did damage. And due to this, a treatment known as the Bliss was created to sedate a person's senses and neural activity. However, the treatment was only affordable by the wealthy due to its high price, and since it was not actually a cure, all it really did was delay the inevitable. Though they were for the most part not capable of speech, we did hear a few of them utter words, indicating their humanity was still there, similar to the effects of the cordyceps infection featured in The Last of Us, which I've already covered on this channel and will be leaving a link to below. By the film trilogy's conclusion, we find out that due to the research conducted on the immunes, there was now a blueprint for a cure, which Wicked was able to create with the use of Thomas's blood. The only problem was that only a single vial was created, and though Thomas attempts to use it to save his infected friend, he's unable to get it to him in time. And with the inevitable collapse of Wicked, which plunges the remaining cities into crank-infested zones of chaos, as well as the death of everyone that had the means to synthesize more, and considering the kids and their friends were all immune in the first place, the cure ended up being utterly useless. Though I really liked the series, I have to admit that the finale was fatuous, as while it was titled The Death Cure, the discovery of the cure was pointless, as the world that remained plunged into chaos. Sure, I mean, we're supposed to be rooting for the kids to survive, but what about the millions of people that were still under the control of Wicked? Are we not supposed to care about them? Because it sure feels that way. But that's just what I think, and I'm of course curious to hear what you guys thought about the film, so please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Well, that's all for today, folks. A big thanks to all of you guys who requested we explore the flare virus featured in the Maze Runner series. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content. And if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.